Rand Paul's candidacy is just hours old, and already the Republican attack ads are rolling in. There's an organization called the Foundation for a Secure and Prosperous America. They sound trustworthy. And they've already spent $1 million on a series of attack ads that are going to be following Rand Paul as he travels across the country. Here is a snippet of the first.
The Senate is considering tough new sanctions on Iran. President Obama says he'll veto them, and Rand Paul is standing with him. Rand Paul supports Obama's negotiations with Iran, and he doesn't understand the threat.
You know, it's ridiculous to think that they're a threat to our national security.
Rand Paul is wrong and dangerous. Tell him to stop siding with Obama, because even one Iranian bomb would be a disaster.
So when LBJ, who was a Democrat, by the way, ran the nuclear bomb attack ad against Goldwater, that was seen as like, whoa, unbelievable, unprecedented, way over the top, etc. Now, every other Republican ad has a nuclear bomb going off in it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like if you support him, then that desert, that anonymous desert, will be bombed.
Yeah. And so, first of all, the quote that they took from him, which is actually eminently reasonable, was from many years ago.
Yeah.
So they're totally doing it out of context. He didn't say that in regard to these negotiations. Second of all, he has now flip-flopped and agreed with Tom Cotton's letter, signed Tom Cotton's letter to the Ayatollahs saying, hey, don't trust President Obama. We will not agree to anything that he agrees to, and we will undermine that agreement. So he tried to undermine the president and the country as we're in the middle of those negotiations, just like every other asshole Republican did. Okay, it was a fairly traitorous act, and he joined in them. And he said, pretty please, Ayatollah, I'd like war with you instead. So he lost his libertarian credentials, but not good enough. Not good enough.
He's Obama.
He's the same as Obama. And every time anybody is a tiny bit to the left of Attila the Hun, they're going to say, just like Obama. He agrees with Obama, which is the biggest insult you can have within the Republican primary. Now, these guys are spending $1 million. You know what that means? They're going to run this 30-second ad 80 to 100 times per day in the first 4 primary and caucus states.
Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada.
Those 4, okay, among the first 4, 80 to 100 times a day.
It'll just be one loop of a nuclear mushroom cloud.
So do you understand that this is what money in politics buys you? The ability to lie to people, to deceive people. Now, I actually think that Rand Paul's position is much worse than this ad indicates. I think that in fact his position is war with Iran, where we're more likely to have bombs go off and more likely to have Americans die.
They're smearing him as being for peace.
That's exactly right.
That's insanity.
So, but no matter what you think of his position, they are lying about it.
Yeah,
they are lying about it.
They are.
So that's what money in politics gets you: the ability to lie about all your opponents and inundate the market so much you don't hear anybody else's speech because you bought a megaphone, $1 million megaphone, and blasted it into everybody's ears.
Exactly. Now, lest you believe that Rand Paul is actually in favor of peace, his campaign wants you to know that that's not the case. Doug Stafford, his political advisor, says these attacks are false. Senator Rand Paul has voted for Iran sanctions and continues to believe that Iran should be forbidden from acquiring nuclear weapons. Senator Paul will oppose any deal which does not guarantee Iran giving up its nuclear ambition. Finally, any deal with Iran should be approved by Congress and not exclusively by the Obama administration. What plan could guarantee that they give up their nuclear ambitions? What does that even mean?
So that in negotiations, you would be saying to the Iranians, give me 100% of what I want, and in return, I will give you 0% of what you want.
And give me something that's impossible. We will put inspectors in every room in Iran. You cannot guarantee that they can't build another bomb. You can just make it much more difficult and inefficient, and that's what the current framework will actually accomplish.
Now, super ironically, this leaves Rand Paul in the same position as Barack Obama. Why? Because Barack Obama thought he could split the baby, that he could agree with Republicans on their stances, and he would get credit from them, and then he would still have his Democratic base. But what happened instead is the Republicans never agreed with him because he wasn't bloodthirsty enough for them, right? And he lost a lot of his base, and so that's why for a while he was deeply unpopular, right? Now, Rand Paul is losing his libertarian base by saying, yes, war with Iran is the only answer. And then when he turns to his Republican buddies, goes, did I do good enough? Did I do? And they're like, no, you will cause nuclear war, Rand Paul. You're not pro-war enough. So he's left with none of the positives, right? Now, look, again, he might be able to thread that needle and try to get both sides. It's a limited time where you have a Republican primary and there will be a ton of noise in all directions, and maybe he squeaks through that middle. Yeah. But that's a tough balancing act.
That's difficult. Here's one way that it's going to be made even tougher. So they're saying he is so weak, such a wuss, that he will lead to nuclear war. The only way he can prove he's not weak, not a wuss, is to begin a nuclear war. So here we have on Fox, we have the brothers. It's Brad and Dallas Woodhouse. Now, they represent, on one side, Democrats, on the other side, Republicans. They run 2 PACs. And here they're arguing about what he needs to do to prove himself. And here you're going to see the Republican brother. Here's his advice to Rand Paul.
Rand Paul, I sort of agree with Brian Kilmeade, what he was saying a few minutes ago, that, you know, that his sort of worldview may not be fitting the world as a lot of people see it right now. He's got to prove, in my opinion, Rand Paul's got to prove that he will nuke a Muslim country if we have to. I'm not saying we should, but I'm saying that we will do that if it takes saving America, and that there's no doubt that he will do what it takes to protect America. I'm not saying we ought to do it, but I want somebody who will if it takes it.
If it takes it.
So in order to win in a Republican primary, according to some Republican strategists, you have to be able to say, I will nuke a Muslim country. Not any other country. I'm not willing to nuke like Japanese people. We already did that. I'm not willing to nuke Norway or anything, or even Africa. Just a Muslim country. Well, if it's a Muslim country in Africa, that's allowed, right? Yeah. So, and pick one, whichever one you like, right?
Doesn't matter.
But look at this, man. There's, like, look at how, like, you can almost see the blood running down his mouth as he's saying, I need a nuke. I need a Republican candidate who's willing to kill hundreds of thousands of people at the same time. Most of them innocent civilians, but who gives a shit? I want those Muslims dead. And if you're willing to do that, and how the fuck would you prove that you're willing to do that? If you're willing to prove that,
just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, then maybe we'll consider you. But if you're not willing to butcher hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians, or perhaps millions, well, then you're not qualified to be a Republican.